Hello, this is Gary Prewitt with NIMBL, continuing our series of demos on SAP's access control product. Today our focus is on access risk analysis. And when I say access risk analysis, if you've been working with GRC or Versa and you're used to using risk analysis and remediation, GRC or compliance calibrator in Versa and GRC 5.2, then please think compliance calibrator, risk analysis, remediation. Again, trying to stick with the 10.1 terminology today. In our demo environment, it's a pretty simplified environment. We've got a ECC environment here, my ECD system, and I'm using my GRC system to analyze risk in my ECC environment. Now, for today's demo, we're going to look at a limited subset of users. I've tried to duplicate a real-world scenario. I've got some AP staff and AR staff that I have roles assigned to. And these are some of the players within that scenario. We're going to try to look at these individuals to see what types of access risk analysis we can evidence. Again, hopefully mimicking a real world scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm signed into my GRC access control environment here. Again, I'm using the NetWeaver Business Client emulated on Internet Explorer in this case. And I'm going to go ahead and navigate to my access management tab, which is where most of the magic happens in access control. And this is my access risk analysis section. I'm going to go ahead and click on the user level risk analysis. Now, there are role level, role profile level. You also have simulation jobs that you can run there. The purpose of the role and profile level jobs is to target remediation activity if that's what's needed. And the simulation, of course, allows you to say, what if I give new access to a user? What type of additional risk am I going to be faced with? So those simulation analyses are out and available for you as well. But we're going to go ahead and run this user level analysis. So I'm going to, again, look at my ECC system. So I'm going to pick my ECC connector. And I don't want to specify the users, but I am going to look at a user group that I've created just for today, the demo group. And the risk level I want to look at is going to be all of them. Let's just look at all of them. And we're going to use the global rule set. This is the SAP delivered rule set. Your organization may have specialized rule sets that they focus that are designed to meet their organization's risk profile. And you may have several organizations within your company that have different rule sets to analyze the areas of risk that they care about. We're going to go ahead and stick with the global rule set and stick with dialog users. We're going to go ahead and look at all these different reports, action and permission level, critical action, critical permission. We're going to include mitigated risks here. And then for my report format, this is the executive, the higher level report. I'm going to go ahead and look at the details. We're going to really get in the weeds today. And then the technical view, I've got two other views available, business and remediation view. The business view, the technical view just gives me the technical names of the risks and the functions. I'm going to go ahead and do the business view because that gives me a description of what I'm looking at. And I'm going to go ahead and run this in the foreground. It's warning me this could take some time. It shouldn't take long. Again, we're looking at a limited subset of users in the demo environment. And in no time at all, we get our report. Okay, it's come back here. Didn't take too long. I've seen these types of reports take 15-30 minutes for around 1,000 users. They can take a long time for large numbers of users and roles assigned. In this particular case, though, we've got a report for this access risk in the AP and AR processes. And I can absolutely analyze this here. I'm going to go ahead and export this in Excel, though. It makes it a little easier for me to get my hands around and filter based on and drill into the risks that I care about. So here's my report. I'm going to go ahead and filter these. I'm going to go ahead and freeze the panes here. And I'm going to actually resize some of this so we can see a little bit more information that's in the report. Just high level overview. The focus again with 10.1 was to consolidate as much interesting activity in this report as possible in order to help you make actionable decisions. So some other key features, some key features that you wouldn't have in 5.3, action reporting is now included in the report. So if one of my remediation or risk management options is to remove access from a user, I can look to see if there is something, the access we're removing is something that they're using, if it's even going to be a big deal. So this is a demo system, so I don't have a lot of execution counts here. You can see some simple roles. I got in this particular case, I've got task-based simples assigned to position-based composites, SAP best practice. So a lot of useful information here. I'm going to focus on, in this particular organization, I'm going to assume that my risk level, the risks that I want to address are high risk issues. So I'm going to focus on high risk for today. And now I'm presented with a set of high risks. Actually, across all my users, I've got 6 high level or high risk access risks that are identified in this report. So let's jump back to our slide. When we're doing our access risk analysis, we've run our report, which we've done. And this, by the way, can be automated. We're here in this analysis step. We have several decisions that we can make as we identify a risk. One is to accept the risk. Either this is a false positive, and we'll go ahead and demo one of those today, or this risk is, it's not really a high risk for our organization. So, classic example would be, you've got a water utility, and you've got Apple distributor. The Apple distributor, their material risk is a lot higher because they've got high value goods that can be smuggled out of the organization. So they may take their material management risk may be higher than it would for that water utility. So we absolutely, it's reasonable to assume that we can adjust this rule set, either fix the actions within a function or to lower the risk of the risk level of an existing risk, etc. Now we can also monitor it. We may just decide, hey, this is a real risk, but we don't have the staff to implement true separation duties across this function. Therefore, we're going to need to have someone come in and just review activity, make sure everything looks above board. So that's another option that you have when managing risk in your environment. Another one you can do is fix. You can absolutely remove that access from a user or a role to address that separation duties risk. And you do have another option here, which is ignore. And why would you do that when you have access risk analysis? You definitely want to make informed decisions. Within these 3 options above, you should be able to accommodate the risk without impacting your business process. And there's technically a 5th alternative available to you here, and that's purchase insurance. I don't know in a Sarbanes-Oxley scenario if that's a realistic scenario for a lot of SAP customers. Let's go ahead and look at how we might look at some of these actual risks that we've identified in today's demo, and let's see how we might address some of these. So in this particular case, I'm seeing a lot of high risk issues here. One of this is this access risk. This user can purchase unauthorized items and then initiate payment. Well, that doesn't sound right because this is if you look at her, the role that she has assigned, she's a AP processor and she's not really doing any purchasing. Why is this risk being flagged? So if we go into the details here, and I'm on this action, this is my T codes column basically, I can see that she's got all these things are conflicting with ME23N, which is a report. So in this particular case, I might ask why is this even an issue? And the reason that this ME23N is in this rule set and it's in access this function, maintain purchase order, is because in older versions of SAP, the ME23N was missing an authorization check, and you could bypass that authorization check to actually change or create purchase orders. So pretty significant deficiency or defect there in ME23N, and that's since been fixed. So if you're running anything older than ECC 6.0, it's fixed out of the box, and notes have been applied for all of the older versions going back to 4.6c. The reason this is in the rule set is because SAP wanted to make sure that this rule set is backwards compatible all the way back to 4.6c systems. So in order not to it'd be in their minds, it's worse for you not to know about a risk that exists, i.e., a false negative, than it is to falsely identify this risk as a risk, i.e., a false positive. At least lets you know that it's there and you can take action. In this particular case, I know that this ME23N, I cannot execute that and maintain or create a purchase order. This has been fixed in my system. So one of the steps in this particular case, the step I might use here is to just remove ME23N from this function, maintain purchase orders, which would again prevent this risk from popping up in future reports. So that's one option that I have available to me. Let's go ahead and jump back here to fixing roles. So let's go down to a risk that I know is one that's kind of a real risk. So I've got a set of AP users here that has access to a couple of conflicting sets of T codes. They've got the ability to process customer invoices, and then they can do cash application. And so the risk here is again, since I ran my business report or my business view of the report, I'm getting the descriptions. They can maintain an invoice and then change payments against that. So what might I do here? In this particular case, I've got task-based simples assigned to a composite, and I've got a pretty good, solid, best practice SAP role design. My functions are split. The process customer invoice function is in one role. My cash app functions are in another role. One of my options available to me is to remove one of these conflicting simple roles from this marketing manager role in order to address this risk. Now, in this particular case, this customer may come back and say, we don't really have enough staff to separate this. I mean, I can split this and have, Richard do one set of functions and Sam do another set of functions. But if Sam goes on vacation or if Richard goes on vacation, I won't have any coverage for that business process. So another alternative, again going back to my workflow here or process flow, I can actually set up a mitigating control. And in this case, that's what I've done. So I've got actually a control here, AR01. I'll go ahead and filter that. And the reason this report's even this set of risks is even showing up in the report is because I selected to include the mitigating controls in there. Had I not selected that, these would just drop off the report, and I wouldn't even be aware of them. Which is again a good thing when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of lines. If you can drill down to the true actionable set of lines that you need to make decisions on, that's ideal. So in this particular case, I've got a mitigating control created. I'm calling it AR.1, and I'm just doing a monthly review of payment changes applied to invoices or cash application applied to invoices. So I'm going to go into another workflow that I have here for my mitigating control. And I have in my younger days, to be fair, been guilty or a victim of talking to business process owners who said, hey, we've got a review for this already. This is not really a risk for our environment because we review this activity on a regular basis. And that's fine and good. Or they might say, we're going to implement that review. That's fine and good. Very difficult to evidence to an auditor, right? And a lot of times people have the best of intentions and it's on their list of priorities. It might be towards the bottom of that list of priorities, and there may be things that need to get done or don't get done ahead of that review task that they have in the back of their personal task list. So there's a temptation by security practitioners to accept that when a business process owner tells you, hey, we've got a review in place. You want to, okay, then we'll just go ahead and drop it from the report. The risk is that you won't actually do or conduct that review on a regular basis. That's what a mitigating control in access control is designed to do. It's designed to set up that review process, figure out who's going to review it, in this case a monitor, who's going to approve it, the mitigating control approver, and then document that review and approval so that external auditors, internal auditors can evidence that this particular risk is being addressed via this mitigating control. So in this particular case, I've decided to filter out. I've decided to place this mitigating control here, and I can suppress that risk from future reports if I don't pick that show mitigating controls checkbox in my report selection options. And we talked briefly about, again, options to fixing roles. This particular risk that we had here, again, assuming we didn't have a mitigating control and wanted to fix it, this was easy to fix, right? We pull one of these simple roles from the composite and assign it in a different composite role, basically move it from one job to another. Sometimes that's not always an option for you. You may have a separation of duties issue that exists within a simple role. And in that particular case, you can really let these functions be your guide. So if say these risks were all in the same role, I could absolutely decide to split this role and basically take my AR02 or cash application transactions and move them into one role, and then move my AR07 or process customer invoices transactions into another role, and basically have access control help me and guide me as to where the line should be drawn when redesigning this simple role. So again, a lot of great actionable data is available in these 10.1 reports and access risk analysis. A lot of these initial review sessions, rather than triggering follow-up investigations and recommendations for the review board at a later time, you can basically spend your time deciding on your what your decision should be with the risk owners and the business owners, business process owners in the room. So it really is, they've really, again, I can't emphasize enough how they've been able to consolidate the data and give you the actionable data you need to make these types of decisions. And that concludes our demo on access control.